My name is Jessica Turner. I'm 34 years old and work as a marketing manager at Cascade Technologies in Chicago. Growing up in a modest Midwestern home, my parents instilled in me the value that respect is earned, not demanded by position or wealth. That philosophy guided me through college, my early career, and my rise through the corporate ranks at Cascade. That was before the morning of March 22nd, 2024. I still remember standing outside that boardroom, my heart hammering against my ribs as Evelyn Whitfield, our CEO's wife, screamed at me in front of 20 executives, her perfectly manicured finger pointed at my face, her diamond bracelet catching the fluorescent lights as she gesticulated wildly. The room had fallen silent except for her shrill voice. "You're nothing but Robert's glorified errand girl," she hissed, her designer perfume overwhelming my senses as she leaned in closer. "And you'll be out on the street by noon." What she didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that I owned 8% of Cascade Technologies. And what happened next didn't just save my job, it ruined hers. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how I ended up in that boardroom with Evelyn Whitfield demanding my termination, we need to go back a bit. I joined Cascade Technologies 5 years ago as a mid-level marketing strategist. The company was growing rapidly in the enterprise software space, with our flagship product gaining traction among Fortune 500 companies. My background in data analytics and consumer behavior research made me valuable to the team, and I quickly rose to marketing manager within 2 years. Robert Whitfield, our 50-year-old CEO, had built Cascade from the ground up. A brilliant technologist with a keen business mind, he was generally respected by employees for his vision and fair leadership style. He was gracious, if somewhat distant, the kind of boss who remembered your name but not necessarily your birthday. I rarely interacted with him directly until my promotion put me in positions where I'd occasionally present campaign results to the executive team. Then there was Evelyn Whitfield. Evelyn was 42, Robert's second wife, and had married into Cascade's success 3 years ago. She had no official role at the company, but somehow she'd carved out an unofficial position of influence. She attended board meetings to support Robert, organized company events, and had opinions on everything from office decor to marketing strategies, especially marketing strategies, which is how our paths began to cross. Initially, I'd found her charming enough. She was beautiful in that meticulous way that speaks of expensive skincare routines and regular cosmetic touch-ups. Her fashion choices were impeccable, always designer labels but never flashy, just expensive enough that anyone who knew would know. She had a certain social grace that served her well at corporate functions, and Robert clearly adored her, but within 6 months of her arrival, people began to notice a pattern. Those who disagreed with Evelyn, even politely, even when they were right, found themselves marginalized. Sometimes it was subtle. They'd be left off email chains or meeting invites. Sometimes it was more direct. Robert would suddenly question their decisions or contributions. My colleagues started treading carefully around her. I noticed how conversations would shift when she entered a room, how forced laughter would follow her jokes, how eyes would dart nervously when she offered suggestions. I maintained a professional distance. My work spoke for itself. Our Q4 2023 campaigns had generated $1.2 million in revenue, exceeding targets by 18%. My presentations were data-driven, methodical, and effective. The executive team, apart from Evelyn, seemed to respect my approach, but tension was inevitable. The first incident occurred on January 10th, 2024. It was 7:30 p.m. on a Wednesday. I was at home, halfway through a yoga session when my phone rang. It was Evelyn. "Jessica, I need you to meet me at Eloise Cafe in an hour. I have some thoughts about the spring campaign I want to discuss." I took a deep breath before responding. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Whitfield, but I have plans this evening. I'd be happy to schedule something for tomorrow morning." There was a pause. "This is important. Jessica, I'm making time in my schedule for this." "I understand, but I'm not available right now. My calendar is open before 10 a.m. tomorrow if that works for you." Another pause, longer this time. "I see. I'm disappointed by your unwillingness to be flexible. Robert always says the Cascade team goes above and beyond. I'm committed to Cascade's success. Mrs. Whitfield, I'll be fully prepared to discuss the campaign with you tomorrow. She hung up without saying goodbye. The next morning, I received an email from Robert asking about my refusal to meet with Evelyn. I forwarded our calendar invitations showing I'd promptly scheduled a 9 a.m. meeting as promised. The issue seemed to resolve itself when our meeting went smoothly, and Evelyn acted as though nothing had happened. The second incident came on February 5th, during a quarterly review meeting. I was presenting our campaign metrics to the board when Evelyn interrupted. Jessica, these numbers don't match what Robert and I discussed last week. Didn't we agree the conversion rate was 3.8%? I maintained my composure. Actually, Mrs. Whitfield, the final numbers came in at 3.2%. I've included the raw data in Appendix B for reference. She smiled tightly. I think you've misunderstood. Robert specifically mentioned 3.8% at dinner with the Hendersons. Robert looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. The analytics dashboard is updating in real time, I explained, pulling up the live data. As you can see, 3.2% is accurate as of this morning. Well, she said with a laugh that didn't reach her eyes, I find your tone quite condescending. Jessica, we're all on the same team here. Later that day, our HR director, Patricia, called me into her office. Jessica, is everything okay between you and Mrs. Whitfield? As far as I know, yes. Why do you ask? Patricia shifted uncomfortably. She's expressed concern about your attitude in meetings. She feels you're being difficult. Difficult how? By presenting accurate data? Patricia winced. You know how it is. Sometimes it's not what you say, but how you say it. I bit back my frustration. I understand. I'll be more mindful of my tone. The third incident occurred on March 1st. Evelyn had organized a charity gala to benefit arts education, a cause genuinely worth supporting. I had to admit, invitations went out to all director-level employees and above. As a manager, I was technically below that threshold, but Evelyn had extended invitations to a select few managers she favored. I didn't receive an invitation until 3 days before the event, when Evelyn cornered me in the break room. Jessica, I noticed you haven't RSVP'd to my gala. Tickets are $500 per person. It's for a good cause. The timing was poor. I'd just committed to helping my sister with a down payment on her house. $500 is steep for me this month. Mrs. Whitfield, I'd be happy to contribute in another way. Perhaps volunteering at the event? Her smile froze. Oh, I just assumed. Well, Robert says you're one of our top performers. I thought your finances would reflect that. The implications stung. I have other financial commitments at the moment. How disappointing. The gardeners from Vertex Solutions specifically asked if you would be there. I'll have to tell them you had other priorities. Vertex was a major client I'd helped secure. The manipulation was obvious. I'm sorry to disappoint them. Please give them my regards. That evening, I received a tersely worded email from Robert asking me to reconsider my decision, as team cohesion extends beyond office hours. I didn't respond, and I didn't attend the gala. Each of these incidents required me to swallow my frustration and maintain professionalism. Each time, I bit my tongue and said, "Certainly, Mrs. Whitfield," or "I understand, Mrs. Whitfield," while screaming internally, each time. I reminded myself that my work record spoke for itself, that I wouldn't let office politics derail my career. But everything changed on March 22nd, 2024. Robert had invited the executive team to their estate, the Willowbrook, for a strategy retreat. Despite not being an executive, I was asked to present our upcoming marketing initiatives. I'd prepared meticulously, creating a comprehensive deck backed by market research and competitor analysis. My presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m. I arrived at 9:30, dressed in my most professional attire, a charcoal pantsuit with a silk blouse, clutching a leather portfolio containing additional materials. The Willowbrook was impressive, a sprawling mansion in Chicago's North Shore with manicured grounds and a view of Lake Michigan. A housekeeper led me to Robert's home office, where executives were gathering before moving to the conference room. Evelyn was there, playing hostess, offering coffee and pastries. She barely acknowledged me when I entered. At 9:55, Robert asked everyone to move to the conference room. As I gathered my materials, Evelyn approached. "Jessica, a word before you join the others?" I nodded, professional smile firmly in place. As soon as the door closed behind the last executive, her demeanor changed. "I saw your presentation draft," she said coldly. "Excuse me?" "Robert left it on his desk last night. I made some edits." She handed me a folder. I opened it to find my carefully crafted presentation slashed with red ink. Entire sections were crossed out. New talking points were scribbled in the margins, talking points that contradicted our data and recommended strategies we'd already determined were ineffective. "These changes completely alter the strategic direction," I said carefully. "They don't align with our market research. Market research changes. These points better align with Robert's vision." "Has Robert seen these edits?" "I'm his wife, Jessica. We discuss everything." I closed the folder. "I appreciate your input, Mrs. Whitfield, but I need to present accurate data to the board. I'd be doing the company a disservice otherwise." Her eyes narrowed. "You're making a mistake." "I don't believe I am. We'll see." The presentation went well initially. The executives were engaged, asking thoughtful questions that I answered confidently. Then came the strategy recommendations. "Based on our analysis," I explained, "we should focus on expanding our enterprise client base while maintaining our current SMB offerings. The data shows our enterprise conversion rate is 28% higher, with a 40% higher average contract value." Robert nodded appreciatively, but Evelyn, seated beside him, whispered something in his ear. His expression changed. "Jessica," he interjected, "what about the SMB expansion strategy we discussed? Evelyn mentioned you were going to present options for growing that segment." I maintained my composure. "The data doesn't support prioritizing SMB expansion at this time. The customer acquisition costs are higher relative to lifetime value. I've included this analysis on page 17. Evelyn's face flushed. "That contradicts everything Robert and I discussed with the Johnsons at dinner last week." "The Johnsons might have offered valuable insights," I acknowledged. "But our comprehensive market analysis indicates—" "The Johnsons," Evelyn interrupted, "run the largest SMB consulting firm in the Midwest. Are you suggesting they don't understand their own market?" The room grew tense. Executives exchanged uncomfortable glances. "I'm suggesting we follow the data," I replied evenly. "The Johnsons' expertise is valuable, but it's one input among many." Robert cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should—" "No, Robert," Evelyn cut him off. "I want to understand why Jessica thinks she knows better than everyone else, why she consistently undermines me." "This isn't about undermining anyone," I said. "It's about making the best business decision based on evidence." Evelyn stood abruptly. "Everyone out, except you, Jessica." The executives filed out awkwardly, Robert included, after Evelyn shot him a look that brooked no argument. Once the door closed, she exploded. "How dare you contradict me in front of my husband and the board? Who do you think you are?" "I'm doing my job. Mrs. Whitfield, presenting accurate information is my responsibility." "Your job," she snarled, approaching until she was inches from my face, "is whatever Robert and I say it is. And right now, your job is in jeopardy." "On what grounds?" "Insubordination, disrespect, take your pick." "Disagreeing with your strategy suggestions isn't insubordination." Her laugh was bitter. "You think anyone cares about the distinction? You think your little $120,000 salary makes you indispensable? You'll be on the street by noon." She yanked open the door, where several executives, including Robert, stood awkwardly, having clearly overheard. "Robert," she announced, "I want her gone, today." Robert looked pained. "Evelyn, we should discuss this privately." "There's nothing to discuss. It's her or me." She stormed off, leaving a stunned silence in her wake. Robert approached me. "Jessica, don't." I said quietly. Just don't. I gathered my materials with shaking hands and walked out, past the uncomfortable executives, past the elegant foyer with its crystal chandelier, and into the bright March morning that suddenly felt cold. In my 2018 Honda CR-V, I sat staring at the steering wheel, my hands trembling. The resignation letter Evelyn had demanded played in my mind. I thought about my 5 years at Cascade, the campaigns I'd built, the clients I'd secured, the nights and weekends I'd sacrificed. I called Robert's cell phone. He answered on the first ring. Jessica, I'm sorry about what happened. Evelyn was out of line, but she's under a lot of pressure with the charity foundation and… Robert, please, it's not what it seems. I know you're upset. Take the day off. We'll sort this out. You don't understand. There's something you should know. We can discuss it Monday. Give everyone time to cool down. He hung up before I could explain. I stared at my phone, a strange calm settling over me. That's when I realized I'd had enough. What Robert Whitfield didn't know, what no one at Cascade knew, was that in October 2023, I had quietly invested $200,000 in Cascade's private funding round. Let me back up a bit. I've always lived below my means. My parents taught me the value of saving, investing, and planning for the future. While my colleagues bought luxury cars and downtown condos, I maintained my modest one-bedroom apartment and the reliable Honda I'd purchased used. I brought lunch from home most days and tracked every expense in a detailed spreadsheet. What wasn't visible was my growing investment portfolio. A small inheritance from my grandmother, combined with disciplined saving and some fortunate early investments in tech startups, had given me a nest egg that I carefully nurtured. When Cascade announced a private investment round for key partners and select individuals, I saw an opportunity. The company's financials were strong, the product roadmap was solid, and despite the office politics, the business fundamentals were sound. After thorough due diligence, I decided to invest a significant portion of my savings. The investment was handled through Morrison & Associates, a boutique firm that managed the round. The paperwork was processed discreetly, not secretively, but without fanfare. My name appeared on the cap table like any other investor, but unless someone was specifically looking, there was no reason for my colleagues to know. That $200,000 investment secured me an 8% equity stake, which at the last valuation was worth approximately $2.4 million. I had never mentioned this to anyone at Cascade, not the convertible note, not the quarterly investment updates, not the board materials I received as a significant shareholder, and it wasn't just Cascade. I'd been building a diverse portfolio that included silent partnerships in 2 restaurants, the Blue Oak Bistro in Denver and Tuscany Gardens in Seattle. Both were performing well, generating passive income that I reinvested. My financial situation was considerably more robust than my lifestyle suggested. As I sat in my car outside the Whitfield estate, I realized it was time to use the leverage I'd never intended as leverage. I drove home and opened my laptop. I pulled up the authenticated share certificates dated November 3, 2023. I found the email thread with Morrison & Associates from March 18, 2024, discussing the upcoming shareholder meeting. I reviewed the legal rights my ownership stake entitled me to. Then I made a phone call to Talia Wright, Cascade's CFO. Talia, it's Jessica Turner. Do you have a moment? Jessica, I heard about what happened at the Whitfields. Are you okay? I'm fine. I need a favor. Of course. What is it? I need you to email me the official cap table, the complete one. There was a pause. That's confidential information. Jessica, I can't just… Check line item 37, shareholder J. T. Holdings LLC. Another pause. Longer this time. I heard keyboard clicks. Oh my God, she whispered. That's you? 8%? Yes. Jessica, why didn't you ever say anything? It wasn't relevant to my job. Until now. Evelyn has no idea, does she? No, and I'd like to keep it that way until the board appreciation dinner on Monday. Talia's tone changed from shocked to slightly amused. What are you planning? Nothing destructive, just a reality check. Will you help me? The cap table will be in your inbox in 5 minutes. Thank you. Talia. Jessica? For what it's worth, your presentation was spot on. The data supports everything you said. I know. The Board Appreciation Dinner was an annual event where Cascade thanked its board members and major investors for their guidance and support. It was being held at the Grand Windsor, Chicago's most exclusive hotel. Evelyn had taken charge of planning it. As she did with all major Cascade social functions, I wasn't invited. No surprise given the morning's events. But as an 8% shareholder, I had every right to attend. The weekend gave me time to prepare. I purchased a new dress, a sophisticated midnight blue gown that cost $2,500. The kind of dress Evelyn had once mockingly suggested was beyond my budget. I had my hair and makeup professionally done. I prepared what I would say and how I would say it. Monday evening arrived. The Grand Windsor's crystal ballroom was transformed into an elegant dining space with crystal chandeliers, floral centerpieces, and a small stage where Robert would deliver his annual address. About 150 people milled about: board members, investors, executives, and their spouses. I arrived fashionably late. At 7:15 p.m., the maitre d' checked his list. I don't see your name, Ms. Turner. Check under JT. Holdings LLC. I'm a shareholder. His expression changed immediately. Of course, Ms. Turner. Right this way. He led me into the ballroom where cocktail hour was in full swing. Heads turned as I entered. I spotted Robert and Evelyn across the room, surrounded by a group of admirers. Evelyn was resplendent in a red designer gown, diamonds at her throat and wrists, laughing at something someone had said. Talia noticed me first. She broke away from her conversation and approached, champagne flute in hand. "You look stunning," she said, kissing my cheek. "Are you ready for this?" "As I'll ever be." "Robert is about to give his welcome speech. Evelyn has no idea you're here." "Perfect." Talia squeezed my arm supportively and returned to her group. I positioned myself where I had a clear view of the stage, but remained partially obscured by a column. Robert took the podium at 7:30. "Welcome, everyone, to our annual Board Appreciation Dinner. Cascade wouldn't be the success it is today without your guidance, support, and investment." As he spoke, I scanned the room, the investors, the board members, the executives who had stood by awkwardly while Evelyn demanded my termination. Evelyn herself, beaming with pride as Robert thanked her for organizing the evening. "And before we continue, I'd like to invite our major shareholders to join me for a commemorative photo." People began moving toward the stage. The expected faces, the known investors. I took a deep breath and stepped out from behind the column. The murmurs started immediately. Executives who thought I'd been fired stared in confusion. Robert faltered mid-sentence as he spotted me approaching the stage. Evelyn's smile froze. I ascended the 3 steps to the platform and took my place among the major shareholders. Robert looked at me questioningly, but continued his speech, inviting the photographer to proceed. Evelyn, standing to the side of the stage, was visibly fuming. After the photo, as people began to disperse, Evelyn intercepted me. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "You're not invited." "Actually, I am," I smiled pleasantly. "As a major shareholder, I received an automatic invitation." Her face registered confusion. "What are you talking about?" "Excuse me, everyone," I said, raising my voice slightly. "Before we continue, I'd like to clear up a misunderstanding." The conversations around us quieted. Robert approached cautiously. "Jessica, what's going on?" A moment of transparency. "Robert." Evelyn seemed confused about my presence here tonight. I nodded to Talia, who pressed a button on her tablet, the large screen behind the stage, meant for Robert's presentation, lit up with the cap table. Specifically, line item 37, JT, Holdings LLC, 8% equity owner. "For those who don't know," I said clearly, "JT, Holdings is my investment vehicle. I've been a shareholder in Cascade since the last funding round. The room fell silent. Evelyn's face transformed from anger to shock in seconds. Robert stared at the screen, then at me. I had no idea, he murmured. Few people did, I replied. I preferred to keep my investment separate from my role as marketing manager. I believed my work should stand on its own merits. I turned to Evelyn, whose complexion had gone from flush to pale. Your threats fall flat when you're threatening your own shareholder, I said, my voice unwavering. Especially one who controls enough voting rights to influence board decisions, including decisions about who has unofficial authority in this company. The implications were clear. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Robert looked stunned. Talia couldn't quite hide her smile. Evelyn found her voice. This is absurd. Robert, are you going to let her speak to me this way? Robert straightened his tie uncomfortably. Evelyn, I think we should discuss this privately. There's nothing to discuss. She's manipulating the situation. By investing in a company I believe in? I asked. By presenting accurate data to the board? By refusing to let personal attacks interfere with business decisions? Talia stepped forward. If I may? Robert, Jessica's contributions and stake are vital to our next growth phase. The marketing strategy she presented on Friday, the one Evelyn rejected, is projected to increase revenue by 22% according to our financial models. Several board members nodded in agreement. The tide was turning visibly. Furthermore, Talia continued, several investors have expressed concern about non-employee influence on company decisions. She didn't look at Evelyn, but she didn't have to. Robert's expression hardened as he realized the precariousness of his position. His wife's behavior wasn't just a personal embarrassment now. It was a liability to the company and, by extension, to him. Jessica, he said carefully, I apologize for Friday's misunderstanding. I value your contributions, both as an employee and as an investor. Thank you, Robert, I replied. I appreciate that. And Evelyn, he continued, turning to his wife, we should continue this conversation at home. Evelyn's eyes darted around the room, suddenly aware of how many people were watching, how many had witnessed her humiliation. Without another word, she turned and walked briskly out of the ballroom, the click of her heels echoing in the stunned silence. The aftermath was swift and comprehensive. The next morning, Robert called an emergency executive meeting. I was invited, not as marketing manager, but as a significant shareholder. He announced a new Respect and Boundaries protocol that formalized the roles of non-employees in company operations. Without mentioning Evelyn by name, it was clear that her unofficial influence had been curtailed. By Wednesday, rumors circulated that several shareholders had threatened legal action over Evelyn's abuse of power and interference in business operations, with potential damages of $500,000. Whether these rumors were true or merely a face-saving measure for Robert was unclear, but they were effective on social media. Respect Jessica began trending on LinkedIn within our industry circles. Several sponsors withdrew from Evelyn's charity gala, citing scheduling conflicts, but privately indicating their discomfort with her behavior. By the following Monday, my promotion was announced. Vice President of Global Marketing, with a salary of $180,000 plus performance bonuses. My first executive decision was to implement the strategy I'd originally presented, the one Evelyn had tried to derail. As for Evelyn, she resigned from all board committees and auxiliary roles within the company. Her fashion-focused charity foundation struggled without corporate sponsorships. She still appeared at Robert's side at major functions, but she was subdued. Her influence visibly diminished. Robert and I maintained a strictly professional relationship. He never directly addressed what had happened beyond his public apology, but there was a new respect in his manner when we interacted. Whether he resented me for humiliating his wife or appreciated me for preventing a larger disaster remained ambiguous. Talia became a close ally and mentor, guiding me through the complexities of my dual role as executive and shareholder. Other colleagues who had previously kept their distance now sought my advice and friendship. An unexpected development came 6 weeks later when I visited Tuscany Gardens, my restaurant investment in Seattle. James Hernandez, an old college friend who managed the restaurant, took me to dinner to discuss expansion plans. What began as a business discussion evolved into reconnecting on a personal level. By the end of the evening, we'd made plans for him to visit Chicago the following month. It's been 14 months since that night at the Grand Windsor. Cascade's stock has risen 35%, and my net worth has quietly crossed the $3 million mark. I still drive my Honda, though I've finally upgraded to a larger apartment with a view of the lake. I've learned that power respects proof, not pedigree, that sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the most leverage, that standing your ground doesn't always mean shouting. Sometimes it means revealing your cards at precisely the right moment. If there's one thing I hope people take from my story, it's this. Don't let anyone bully you or make you feel small because you're polite or because you don't flaunt your accomplishments. Sometimes, the person they're underestimating owns more of the boardroom than they could possibly imagine.